Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. We're very excited to have Paul, and he's going to talk about Immersion Neuroscience Part 2. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Zaira. Okay, everybody, welcome. If you were joining me for the earlier session this morning, I went through the science of immersive learning and spent some time talking about particularly remote learning, how we can optimize the design of content, the delivery of content, and provide customized feedback for each learner. So what I want to do now is apply that science using the 3 years of client data that we have to drive some general principles for how you might improve the training that you do. So this is a slide I left off with last time. So just to get people up to speed who were not in the first session. So we are measuring neurologic activity by pulling data from people's smartwatches, applying algorithms in the cloud that allow us to infer what the brain's doing second by second in order to understand how much individuals' brains value that experience. When that experience is valued, it is remembered, and it can be recalled and used later. Again, a couple ways to optimize training. One is ensure that the most important information occurs during immersion peaks. So the data show that peak immersion moments are the most memorable during an experience. So once you have a technology that allows you to measure second by second how effectively people are absorbing this information, you can begin to curate that training so that those key points occur during peak immersion moments. Second, the platform has benchmarks, so you can quickly ask the good or bad question. Compared to the benchmark, is this training above or below benchmark? And those benchmarks correlate strongly with outcome measures, performance measures like information recall, higher productivity for employees post-training. And so really ensuring that your training is at or above benchmarks not only allows you to demonstrate the value you're creating for an organization, but allows you to improve over time. Next, the platform identifies those who are checked out. They're just frustrated. For whatever reason, the training is not working for them. That's okay, right? We as trainers accept the responsibility to engage every learner. And so if some people are checked out because they're tired or their feet hurt or whatever, that's okay. Now you have the ability to actually identify that and then feed them back additional training information so everyone's up to speed. I talked in the earlier session about the importance of measuring psychological safety so that people actually have the ability to learn. They're ready. They have the bandwidth neurologically to acquire new information. And then lastly, individualized feedback allows learners to begin to manage their own training by showing what they are really interested in learning, what they need a little more time to learn. And so now we have a bunch of positive feedback loops that enhance the training that you are offering. So I'm going to pull some kind of key points from an article that was published maybe a month ago in TD Magazine. So I'll just put that slide up. So it's online, it's free, you can find it. But additional stuff from client work as well. So some key things you could do. One is prepare the brain to be engaged in the learning you're going to present. So really set up an agenda, build some anticipation, clarify what your performance indicators are. Our goals from the training are to have you clearly understand compliance or GDPR or whatever those things you want people to read. Do some pre-reading, right? Have people's brains primed to acquire this information. Might be a video, but even a little bit of preparation is very important, particularly the night before. We'll talk about the importance of sleep in a moment. But if they can prepare the night before, the day before, then the next morning, let's say when you start that training, it'll be more effective. Number two, storytelling. So, you know, everyone sort of understands how effectively stories are to get people to care about content. Disney is the master of the storytelling realm. But we find that if you lead with a story, you can immerse people in that content immediately. So that story should be at human scale. It's not a data story, it's a person story. And when that story has conflict and authentic emotions, then we as social creatures are kind of sucked into that story. This is why Sarah and I are famous for both crying at sad movies. So that's an example of immersion, right? So I'm cognitively intact. I'm in the theater. I know these are professional actors. I know this is a fictional story. But at the end, when the boy gets the girl, people cry. So if you can do that, maybe you don't want people to cry in your training, but if you can get them emotionally engaged, then you've captured them, right? And once you've captured them neurologically, then the additional content that you're going to show them, which is more technical, maybe based on data, then you've already led them in. You've kind of opened up their brains so they can absorb that information. And what we find is it's really important to vary the way you present information. As we'll see in a moment, it's very difficult to stay immersed for too long a period of time because it's metabolically costly to do so. So the brain actually loves unexpected changes. So if I give an hour talk, I'm going to show some videos, I'll show some pictures, I'll use the stage, I'll move around, anything to keep people guessing on where I'm going, so they have to continue to expend the metabolic energy to stay with me. So make them work for it, but leading with a story is a great way to get a nice halo effect where I've already immersed you in the story of a client or an employee that had some kind of crisis and resolved, that illustrates the point you're trying to make in the training. So leading with a story is just a really effective way to do that. Next up, we talk about psychological safety. So how do I establish psychological safety? Again, I'm a nerdy scientist, so for me, measurement's number one. But even if you can't measure or don't measure, do emotional check-ins. We do this when we filter into an in-person classroom anyway, right? We say, "Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, good, Bob. Good, nice, good to see you. How's your wife doing? How's your whatever?" So you can do that in a video conference meeting. You can do emotional check-ins. So take 5 minutes in the beginning and just see how people are doing. And emotional doesn't mean, is everything okay? It really means asking, depending on how big the group is and your relationship with them, asking, deep questions. Hey, how's it going? Gosh, we're 11 months into this crazy lockdown. Is your family okay? How are your kids doing? How's the Zoom school? How are you able to manage work and home from the same structure? Wellness breaks are really important. As I said, immersion, if I'm really going to create immersive content, I'm going to burn some metabolic energy. And so wellness breaks about every 20 minutes are recommended. So have people stand up, get off your butt that's hurting, go pee, get a drink. One of the learning architects at Accenture, a longtime client, had a beautiful phrase. Let me see if I can get this out right. He said, Maslow's hierarchy always wins, right? So if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you have to go to the bathroom, that's going to burn some neural bandwidth, right? And it just means I'm less able to immerse. So a 2 or 3 minute wellness break every 20 minutes is actually really useful. Accenture's been doing this for the last couple of years. It makes a huge difference. Don't get stuck with the tyranny of the 60-minute clock. There's no reason that your brain works on 60 minutes. It works much more like on 15 or 20 minutes. Think of TED Talks, right? The famous 18-minute TED Talk. That's about right. Hit me hard, hit me fast, give me something to do. Wellness breaks in which you do silly things like let's do some calisthenics or whatever. Let's sing a song together. Actually, it's a great bonding exercise. So it's a great way just to make those connections, have people feel comfortable. So even if you're organizing a meeting, you can be silly, you can be funny, it's fine. Everyone, if you're the boss, everyone knows. Believe me, they know who the boss is. There's no confusion. If you're being silly, it doesn't mean you're not the boss. One thing we've seen very effectively in in-person meetings, but also remote meetings, is have someone else lead the meeting. If you're the boss, have some junior person lead the meeting. Have them set the agenda. Have them run it. Sit in the back and empower other people to lead. Have them get a chance to participate. And the meeting will be a little different, and that's good. Different can be good. You can always bring them back if you wander too far away from the agenda, and that's the reason to have an agenda. You can bring them back. And then lastly, politeness is never, you cannot be too polite. So please and thank yous are really important for humans. We're social creatures. We're super sensitive to social information. And just saying please and thank you, honestly, is really important. So, okay. This is work right out of Accenture's use of the Immersion platform. Accenture has done what I call the 20-20-20 rule. So a person does not present for more than 20 minutes. The next 20 minutes is used for active participation by learners, and then 20 minutes of a debrief, right? So let's talk about what did we learn in the last, when we try to apply this information. So this old saying in medicine, I said this in my first section, see one, do one, teach one, same kind of thing, right? See someone do it, try to do it yourself, and then try to explain it to other people. A way to do that is to just have round robin questions. So everyone's going to make a comment in the debrief session. And this is really important to reinforce the information, right? Seeing it is not enough. Seeing it and doing it is great, and seeing and doing it and telling someone else about it, really good. So, that's the way that you ensure people will get a certificate or pass a test or, do the things they need to do to benefit from the learning individually. Number 5, I mentioned this morning in my session that one of the nice things about neuroscience is you can identify the individuals who really loved the session. Their brains really absorbed it. They are the Immersion Champions. And you can begin to gamify the facilitation, the peer discussions, by giving Immersion Champions badges. It could be virtual badges if it's virtual training. When we're back to sitting shoulder to shoulder, it could be actually an actual physical badge. So think about the Maslow's hierarchy breaks. If you have a badge that says, ask me about compliance, okay, now I've got a reason to go talk to you. And then that leverages the training you've done to generate peer discussions. So again, the trainees cannot say, well, the trainer liked you or you smiled at him or her. No, your brain said, you dig this stuff. You really understood it. And so you can empower those individuals to leverage the formal training into that informal networking that we, very reliably do. It also makes it fun. So again, training is hard, but also learning is hard, right? It takes energy. It's something we can do, but to the extent you can make it more fun or gamify it, then it just makes it a little less onerous to do. Okay, and then number 6, practice, practice, practice. So that's Nick Offerman, the actor, comedian, in his famous workshop in LA. And so, knowing something and being able to do it are really different things. Oh, sorry for the typo in that slide. 2 typos. So yeah, really reinforce the materials by using them. Sleep is a great way to consolidate the information, as I sort of teased you earlier. So when I do trainings, I always do 2 half days. Give them an assignment to work on overnight, let that information consolidate during sleep, and then come back the second day with the results of their assignment, their overnight assignment. So really effective. I think for online training, the data we're seeing now is that 2 hours is about the most people can really put up with, even with breaks. All day training is just not, but by the second half of the day after lunch, just no one can sustain immersion. So what about 3 1-hour training sessions, right? So really think about how to optimize that so that you're not kind of violating, what our brains and bodies want to do. The 2D space is just not as immersive as in person. That's kind of a general rule. So let's think about kind of modulating to that, or modifying what we're doing to that, 2D remote space. And this is, by the way, this is also true whether the training is, a whole group simultaneously or people doing it asynchronously. Small, immersive is much better for information retention than long and extensive. So hit me hard, hit me fast, give me something to do, let me rest on it, hit me hard again. So, the brain is very much like a muscle. when you stress it, when you put a lot of energy into the brain, it needs a recovery period. And sleep is the best recovery period, but even a short, kind of bio break or, just change of pace is an effective recovery. So facilitate particularly online peer learning. So a lot of learning management platforms have a way to actually share information either during the training or in a training period. So I don't think the remote inhibits sharing between peers, particularly when you have group projects to work on to gain that expertise. And then lastly, I think it's really important to audit what you've done. So I think we're as long as trainees know, once we're back in rooms, having a camera in the room, a GoPro to capture, say, the back of people's heads while you do the training. The Immersion platform actually will overlay the data on the session. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is a little video that Accenture put up. They showed this at Davos a couple years ago, talking about how they're using Immersion to optimize their training. And it doesn't have any sound, but you can see that there's a little video, and then the platform just overlaid the video second by second. And because we've normed immersion so it runs from 0 to 10 and it's linear, and 8 is twice as good as a 3. So if this little video were the training, then I can go back and think about how to optimize that content for higher immersion. By the way, this doesn't have a readiness score, the psychological safety, because you need at least 2 minutes of data to get this, and this video runs about 90 seconds. Okay, blah, 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 people are talking, here's my training. How good is it, right? So, how do I curate this for higher impact? So I think having that is really important. And then now in this little demo, I'm going to separate this out by specific individuals who watch this video, and you'll be able to see that brains work similarly, right? So, when things are really immersive, they're immersive for most people. But then look at this person in teal. This is your superfan. This is your evangelist for this. So whoever this person is, they love this. Look at that giant spike. Again, these curves, this is 3 individuals. Their brains are working similarly, but the teal person is much more immersed in this information than are the other folks in the group. And that's really interesting. So we want to empower that person to leverage that training for higher impact. And then again, go back and curate this. So again, Accenture did not test this technology using immersion, but some points here, we could have taken some of this out. Maybe this is us walking down the hall, and I could curate this. Particularly if I had a little, this is 90 seconds, so it's hard to get too unimmersed in 90 seconds. But if it's a 20-minute session, I'd like to record that and go back and see how I can make it better. Okay. So let's see. So that's it. I think there's some real takeaways. I think it's looking at this information from the learner's perspective. I think the nice thing about measuring learners is you're empowering learners to drive the bus, right? So as trainers, we sort of think, hey, we're experts at this. We know how to present content. We know how to create content. But this actually puts the burden on trainers to adjust that content for the learners in the room. And whether that learning is happening in the US, whether it's happening in Mexico, in England, in France, it might be a little different. And there's some great learning that can go on there. So I think having that information is super important. So anyway, love to answer some questions. We've got some time for questions to talk about best practice. So
first, I just want to add, Paul, thank you so much for both of your sessions today. This is fantastic stuff. And me being an airline guy, I really definitely want to talk to you more, because we've got some situations around safety training that we would love to use, some of what you're talking about. So let's look over. There were some interesting questions, though. Sabrina was asking, does the higher immersion lead to higher retention in application on the job?
It does. So we find about a 0.6 correlation between immersion and retention. So it means the more immersed you are, the more you're going to remember weeks later. and that's across a lot of different client uses. So again, the first session, which Brandon, they must be recorded and put online somewhere. They can review that kind of the science. So I really want to spend this short time on kind of things people can do right now to kind of crank up the value of that number.
There is another great question just quickly from John on, and I could actually use this too. How do you apply this to your team for helping drive productivity in meetings?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a number of clients, particularly in the tech space, that are really concerned about having effective team meetings. So they'll use our technology and just invite team members to say yes on their watch and then pick up that data. So what we found in a lot of, particularly in technology companies, is that great team leaders increase psychological safety during the course of an hour meeting. That is, they have a little bit of intro that's all kind of gets settled focus, and then that psychological safety again opens up space for me to be immersed in the information. So poor team leaders do that poorly. So I think just monitoring psychological safety enough is just to make sure people are comfortable, they can acquire new information, and they're able and they feel safe to contribute and to suggest changes.
So that practical application is what we can take to our everyday, just how we conduct ourselves with our teams every day, right? So that's fantastic. All right, great. Sarah, any other things?
I think there's another question in the Q&A. It's more like a comment. This is a chicken and egg question. I would think that when the key points are valued, inspire emotion, immersion would be highest. If I understand it, Paul said trainers could curate accordingly. I would think that the topics are what lead to immersion.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is a chicken egg issue, right? So I could have the most perfectly designed content, but have someone deliver it poorly, right? Yeah. So again, or I could have, crappy content, but I have this amazing speaker. So, I think that's where the storytelling comes in. Let's kind of ease our way into this, and we're all natural storytellers. And obviously you can get trained, you can get better at this, but let's tell a little story about why this is important. And again, this is not for every meeting, you guys. You may want to deploy some of these tools just when, but it's something I always think of, the technical stuff I do, that, math type stuff. Man, if I got to do an hour lecture on machine learning, I really want to start with a story, maybe a history. So I for many years taught math classes, and I would just go through the history of like, okay, we're going to learn about blah. Let me tell you about why this was developed. This is a crazy thing in 18th century Switzerland. These guys are trying to figure out, why water flowed faster through a pipe when the pipe was smaller. And this guy named Bernoulli was working on it. Like, okay, well, why are you telling me this? Just showing the formula. Yeah, but now you have context. So that brain loves context. That's sticky. That's why we do it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Anything else there that you see, Sarah?
No. Okay, Stephen had a question. Have you used these measures for day-to-day work activities?
Yes, a great question. Yes and no. So small scale, yes. So we have some clients. So we're a 3-year-old company. So we have been doing this for 4,000 years. But we have clients that are now using this to measure during the workday what individuals love doing and what frustrates them. Mm-hmm. And again, to me, this is so empowering for the employee. If I know that I love working with clients or I love doing accounting, man, give me more of that. That's where that discretionary effort's going to come in. If I love it, it's just one of those human things. Right? If I love it, I'm just going to put more effort into it, even if I think I'm giving equal effort to everything. So I think this is a way to change that conversation that we often have with our direct reports.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we need more accounting. We lost an accountant. Can you do more accounting? Like, I guess so. But if you go, look, he loves accounting, and I actually love working with clients. Let's just swap this out, right? That's
So that's true.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great.
I think the last question here is anyone in the education field using this?
A ton, K-12 as well as in college education. So in K-12, particularly for flipped classrooms, we'll see teachers actually watching the data in real time, and the kids have 20 minutes to work on a project. If they're done in 10, they're done in 10. Go do a little exercise break. In the college level, with a client in I can't mention it, but an elite Northeast college, And the data I saw was for principles of economics class, so kind of a semi-technical or mathy class. Yeah. And actually, psychological safety was a better predictor of midterm grades than was immersion, right? So if the students felt comfortable, that information is getting in their head, and the size effects were quite large. So I think a 10% increase in psychological safety increased their midterm grade on the letter grade, by a full letter. Right?
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
So again, it could be that college professors are boring, and I'm still a college professor, so maybe I'm a boring person, but just establishing that kind of safe classroom, that's a heck of a start.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
I guess that's about it.
Yeah.
This was great, Paul. I mean, I was taking a lot of notes throughout the session myself, so I'm going to definitely useful for all of us. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it was really great. Thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.